Hi, welcome to High Growth with HTDC on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Cindy Matsuki, and HTDC is the state's tech evangelist. We support all things tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, and manufacturing, and there's so many amazing things going on in the state that I want to share them with you here. So our first awesome guest today, and this is kind of like a hidden gem, although it's not really hidden because people drive past it every day probably. But I think a lot of people don't know how amazing this place is. My guest today is Dan Uyeunten. Uyeunten?
Yes, that's correct.
Director of the Innovation Center at the Rehab Hospital of the Pacific. So for those of us who don't know, briefly, what is the Rehab Hospital of the Pacific?
Rehab Hospital of the Pacific is the only acute care inpatient rehabilitation hospital in Hawaii. We actually service quite a bit of the Pacific Rim as well. We also have 3 outpatient therapy clinics, one in Hilo, one in Aiea, and our largest one is in Nu'uanu campus along with the hospital. We see roughly 3,000 to 4,000 patients a year, and we range between spinal cord injuries, strokes, traumatic brain injuries. We also see a lot of medical conditions, amputations. So we service a large population that requires a lot of rehabilitation services.
It's like serious stuff, not just like sports injuries.
Yeah, so our outpatient clinics, we do see some of the more lighter injuries in like sore back, sore necks, the typical aches and pains. But we do specialize in that neurological, the heavy rehabilitation types of patients.
Wow. And what is the Innovation Center?
The Innovation Center was started about 3 or 4 years ago through a generous donation by Mr. Mark Robision. He's really instrumental in the development of the Innovation Center. His mother had a stroke and she went through the process, and Mr. Robision saw that the kinds of work that we did and how important it was for these services to be around. And so he partnered with the Rehab Hospital to develop this new department which explores a lot of technology, explores new treatment techniques, and invests into education for the staff.
Oh.
Yeah.
What is the education part?
So actually just 2 days ago, our staff just completed a new series of trainings called Gyrotonics. It's similar to Pilates. Everyone's very familiar with Pilates. But what I understand it to be is that Pilates is very linear, is very positional, and they focus a lot on core and those types of things. Gyrotonics is a little less known, but is very beneficial, we think. It involves more rotational and more fluid movement. And so we feel it might be applicable to patients with strokes, with spinal cord injuries, with Parkinson's, and we're also thinking about using it for breast cancer rehabilitation, because a lot of restrictions with after mastectomies. There's a lot of scar tissue that develops, and using this new treatment technique and this new program, we're trying to see if we can develop something with that. Yeah.
Wow, so it's not just tech innovation.
No, it's also treatment innovation. We're trying to explore new ways of treating the patients.
Amazing. That's
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
We have a short little video to kind of give us a little picture of some of the things that they have at the Innovation Center. So let's take a look. Oh. So we don't get to see the video? I guess as long as it's playing. Okay.
A spinal cord injury that's resulted in paraplegia.
From when I was injured, I always thought it'd be cool to be involved in some kind of cutting-edge technology or development for the spinal injury. I'm like paralyzed from the chest down, so for the Ekso, it's incredible to be able to stand upright and walk independently with crutches. I never thought that would be possible. I feel more of a person. I know it sounds crazy, but just more confident and just like I used to be.
We have seen wheelchair-bound patients being able to walk. It has been an amazing technical advance, and we see that this truly is the future direction of rehabilitation.
That's amazing. So that's one of the cool innovations at the Innovation Center. So what is that? I know that's an exoskeleton.
Right, right.
So how does that work?
So we were one of just a handful of hospitals that were lucky enough to work with Ekso Bionics. At the time, they were called Berkeley Bionics,
Wow.
and they changed the name to Ekso Bionics. They're a company out of California, and they developed this technology that allows paraplegics and some incomplete quadriplegics to stand up and walk again. So the device is an exoskeleton. It weighs about 47 pounds. It has 4 motors, 2 at the hips, 2 at the knees. And the person wears the battery and the I guess the computer controlled part of the device on their back, like a backpack. The rest of the apparatus wraps around their legs, and so it kind of straps onto their legs and their feet into this exoskeleton. And then really passively, the exoskeleton will have enough power to make them stand up, to be able to take steps and walk again. So in the video, Chris Greer was injured, oh gosh, I want to say almost 15 or 18 years ago, maybe. And she and her husband, John, who is also a paraplegic, they were the first 2 that really got into the Ekso and were really successful with it. Interesting story is that how they met. They met through they're both Paralympics in tennis, and they currently live and work in Hawaii, and they do the marathon, and they do canoe paddling, and they do all these things. And they have a 4-year-old son, Dylan.
They're in better shape than
yeah.
I am. Definitely.
And because they're such great athletes, they caught on to the ability to use this machine and adapt and adjust their balance, and they were able to do that very well. And so they're by far their best users of the Ekso.
That's amazing. And does it carry some of your weight, or it carries
It
its
carries
own
all
weight,
of the
or-
person's weight.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Because the person is a paraplegic, they can't feel their legs. If they're injured
That's
somewhere in the
amazing.
middle of their back, everything from that injury level down, they can't feel. They can't feel anything. They can't move anything. So what they say, it feels like when they first stand up, it's like trying to balance on a bicycle that's not moving. That's the best way that they could describe it.
Wow.
So in the video, you also saw them using a walker. So when they first start getting up and walking with the device,
So to
they
get
have to
used
use
to
a
the
walker.
balancing.
Yeah, and we have them tethered to a safety line, so that just in case they tip over and fall, 1, they don't get hurt, and 2, that's a pretty expensive piece of equipment. So we don't want to make Mr. Robison very upset about that.
That's true. So you had to apply to get one of these.
Yeah, so actually my predecessor, Teresa Wong, she was the one who really started exploring those possibilities. And she got into contact with Ekso, and we're just fortunate enough to be one of the participants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And can I ask how much it costs?
Yeah, so, well, this was about 3 years ago. I'm not too sure about the pricing now, but we paid about $100,000 for the equipment. So it's not cheap by any means. And that, our Ekso here is one of, I want to say 55 in the world.
Wow.
And there's only 20 or 30 some in the United States. So in Hawaii, that's the only
That's
one here.
amazing.
The next closest one you're going to find in California, in some of these larger rehab facilities. But that's the whole idea behind the Innovation Center, is that we want to try to bring the best technology to Hawaii. We want to bring the best treatment techniques to Hawaii, so that we can debunk that myth that you have to go to the mainland for the best of anything. You can find it right here in Hawaii.
That's amazing. And it sounds like not only physically does it help, but just psychologically.
Yeah, definitely.
Just
Definitely. That's one of the things that they all mention, is that they feel human again. They're not always sitting in the chair looking up at people. To be able to stand up and look at someone eye to eye for the first time in 15 or 20 years, it's something special. And that's the thing that they mention the most often.
Yeah.
That's kind of the common theme amongst all our users.
That's great. That's amazing. And is it like a partnership with the company, the Ekso company?
Yeah, so basically what we're doing was, in the very beginning, we were basically beta testing their device. And they wanted to see how easy it was to put on, how easy it was to take off, how easy it was for the therapist to make adjustments to the system. And gradually, we've worked with them. We've did some upgrades with the equipment, with the hardware, the software, batteries. One of the things that we noticed was that John and Chris were such great users of the device that they would work the motors to the point where they were getting so hot that we'd have to just stand in the hallway and stop so we could cool off the motors.
Wow.
So the engineers developed impeller system to dissipate the
wow.
heat. Yeah, and right now John and Chris will both use it maybe 30 to 45 minutes straight now.
Wow.
And so with that really heavy use, and John, especially John, he's a very physical, he's kind of a big guy. So he puts a lot of stress on the machine. And so we broke it a couple of times.
Wow.
To Ekso's delight, sometimes, because they
then
want to
you know
know how to
where it
re-engineer
needs to
that
be
joint
improved.
and that part to make it stronger and better. Yeah.
That is very cool. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. My guest today is Daniel Uyeunten. I'm your host, Cindy Matsuki, and this is High Growth with HTDC on ThinkTech Hawaii.
Aloha, my name is Willow Chang Alion, and I host a show called The Art of Life. We air live every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. And what we do is basically we focus on individuals who create a unique sense of place for Hawaii. These are movers and shakers, artists, innovators. They are also traditionalists. They're all involved in the archival process, and they make this place a unique place, one that makes Hawaii a richer place to be. I hope you do join us, and certainly tell your friends about the show, whether they live here or they live abroad. It's a way to give back to our community. We're keeping it pono.
Hi, welcome back to High Growth with HTDC. I'm your host, Cindy Matsuki, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about what's going on in the town and around. So tonight is Tech Tuesday at Hawaii Tech Works in Hilo, featuring Ryan Finley, who will be sharing his story of how he ended up making a living on Craigslist, which is awesome, and how that led him to build ApplianceSchool.com. If you're not in Hilo, Hawaii Tech Works will be live streaming their event on YouTube, so check that out. Making a living on Craigslist, that's amazing. Also, tomorrow is Wetware Wednesday, and we're celebrating 3 years of networking events for software developers. And tomorrow's event is going to be sponsored by Blue Planet Software and Civil Beat and featuring High Capacity. And we also have a cupcake sponsor. We have Hokulani Bake Shop sponsoring the cupcakes, so check it out. High Cap's going to be demonstrating some of the cool projects they've been working on. This is going to be tomorrow at Club 1144, celebrating successes. If you have any success stories that you want to share that have come out of Wetware Wednesday, please send it to me at cindy@htdc.org. On September 10th, HTDC is hosting the seminar, How to Cost-Effectively Manage Legal Representation, with David Squarey of Badger Arakaki. He's going to discuss how to make the most of your time with an attorney. Like, what can you do on your own? Where can you find these free resources? And when should you definitely hire an attorney? Lots of valuable answers that he's going to share with us. So check that out. That's going to be September 10th. And it's going to be hosted at FTZ, the Foreign Trade Zone. Speaking of the law, do you need any legal advice regarding your business? HTDC is offering free legal guidance in partnership with the Business Law Corps. You can sign up for a free 30-minute appointment at the Manoa Innovation Center. Please visit us at htdc.org/legal to sign up. And then one short note I wanted to add, I want to let our entrepreneur community know that we have office space available at the Manoa Innovation Center. We offer great community spaces, basic office services, a great program for starting businesses, and much more. For more information, please visit our site at htdc.org. And lastly, calling all SBIR Phase 1 winners. HTDC offers the state's matching fund for up to 50% of your Phase 1 award. So if that's you, please contact us at sbir@htdc.org. And now, back to our wonderful guest, Daniel Uyeunten of Innovation Center at the Rehab Hospital of the Pacific. And we're talking about some of the different kind of technologies that you guys have. What are some of the other technologies or innovations?
So something else that we use quite a bit in our hospital is called the AlterG, the Antigravity Treadmill. This
sounds fun.
Yeah, so this is actually NASA technology, and we brought it in about 3 years ago. So we're by far the largest user of this device. Each treadmill is, roughly $45,000 a piece, so it's quite expensive again. But through the Innovation Center and being part of a rehab hospital and our great foundation that we have there, we're able to afford a lot of this technology. what it does, it allows the user to unweigh their body weight a little bit using air pressure. So the person puts on a pair of neoprene shorts, it's like wetsuit material, and then they zip into a bag that lifts up around them. And then the machine fills up that bag with air and it lifts the person up by the neoprene shorts. So it's almost like standing halfway in a balloon, if you can imagine that. And there's actually lots of videos on YouTube about it. And there's a video, I believe, of Kobe Bryant running in it or jogging in it. And I guess this was maybe about a year ago after he tore his Achilles tendon. So part of his recovery was to run in the Alter G. So there's a video of him running in that. And this past Olympics and marathon, a lot of marathon runners are starting to use this device because they can train at a really high level, but when they decrease their body weight just a fraction, it takes a lot of the pounding off of their joints. It decreases that pressure on their joints, their hips and their knees, so they can train a little bit harder and a little bit faster and longer without that joint discomfort. So it goes all the way from elite athletes to where we use it in rehab hospital is that we use it for people with Parkinson's, with strokes, with spinal cord injuries, even just our elderly that are having a little bit more difficulty getting up and walking around because they have a hard time standing up or they have a hard time walking because gravity's pulling them down. So we can get them into the Alter G and then we can unweigh them and decrease their body weight so that they're maybe 50% of their body weight, and they can practice taking nice long strides, nice long steps. They can even practice walking backwards and we don't have to worry about them falling. It's we also use it as a safety device too. We can challenge them in ways. And it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable that they're safe, they're not going to fall. So they're more willing to try more advanced balance exercises and such.
That's amazing. That's interesting, and I'm sure it helps them just get their muscles going.
Yeah, and a lot of them, the first time they use it, they say that the next day their joints were a little bit achy, just because they haven't used their joints that much in a long time. Instead of taking little 6-inch steps, then they went to 2-foot steps. And then they were able to stretch out. So that's part of it too.
That sounds like fun. How do you choose the things that you bring into the Innovation Center?
So part of the Innovation Center is to just be like a think tank, to be like just to explore. And so we bring in technology, or we bring in instructors for new treatment techniques, and we'll try it out. We'll try it out on ourselves. We'll try it out as on some patients. And then if the device works, say in the case of the Alter G, then we'll expand it to the rest of the hospital. So we have we're purchasing one for the inpatient side of the hospital. We have 2 in their Nu'uana clinic. We have 1 in our IAEA clinic, and then we're going to be purchasing 1 for our Hilo clinic. So all of our clinics are going to have it. So some of the things that we kind of got rid of, we try it out in the Innovation Center. If it kind of works, or if it doesn't work, or if it doesn't really take off or make a big difference in the way we treat, then the program just kind of stops there.
So it's like an experimental.
It is, yes. So we get to play a lot in there.
That's very cool. That is cool. What has been the response for some of the people that have gone through some of the different treatments you're trying?
Well, one of the things is that they say, "Wow, we can't find this anyplace else." So it makes it special for them.
Do people actually come to Hawaii, like from other places?
We've hosted some more affluent people, obviously, that are able to afford to come here. But we've hosted some folks from China, from Japan, from South Korea, because a lot of this technology and a lot of rehabilitation techniques that we use are kind of based in the United States, and so we're the closest geographically to Asia. And so we're really trying to reach out to our Asian market right now, that our counterparts in Asia, to really try to see if we can exchange ideas and share some knowledge with them. So we do host folks from Asia occasionally who will stay with us for a couple of weeks just to get some extra training in. Sometimes they've had their strokes years ago, but they just want to try something new. They heard that we have some kind of new piece of equipment. They heard that we have the Ekso, or we have this Alter G, and so they want to come out and try it for themselves.
Wow, that's great. And do you guys look at also the Asia Pacific region for innovation as well, or is it mostly? the US?
I just went to Japan back in November, and Dr. Takeoka, he's actually a spinal cord injury himself. He's a C4
Wow.
spinal cord injury, so he's an incomplete paraplegic. Finished medical school that way. He hurt his neck in a rugby scrimmage back in high school, or just shortly
Wow.
after high school. But then he finished medical school as a quadriplegic. Very impressive story. Very impressive man. But he, through some contacts at our hospital, he found out about the Ekso, so he wanted to come and try it and walk, and so he did. And now we're working really closely with him to try to see if we can make some partnerships with hospitals in Japan.
Wow,
So I
that's
went there
great.
back in November, and I was able to visit the Nagasaki University Hospital, Nagasaki Kita Hospital, the Rehabilitation Hospital there, a spinal cord injury hospital, and their facilities are just fantastic. And they do have their own level of technology,
yeah.
you know. The big difference with a lot of the technology that I saw there and what we have here is that the technology in Japan is more EMG based, so it picks up on electrical signals that the muscles are producing. So the robots that they have will strap onto the person's legs, much similar to the Ekso, but the person has to have some muscle function
I see.
for the machine to pick it up, and then based on what
And
the
then
machine
start
senses,
going.
it'll help them to walk. So it's not as powerful, and obviously you have to have some muscle function for it to walk. A lot of the technology in America is based more on weight bearing. So with the example would be the Ekso. So then the Ekso, the machine is able to tell how the person is shifting their weight, and those parameters are set by the therapist. So when you take a step, you have to shift your weight laterally and forward, right? To unweigh the other leg so they can lift up and take a step. And so the Ekso is sensing that person's weight shifting back and forth, and so they're able to take steps that way. So it's two trains of thought, two different ideas of how to get someone walking. Both have their pluses and minuses, but you know, we'll just kind of wait and see how things develop. Really, the Ekso, we look at it as like the first generation of cell phones. You know, those big clunky banana phones with the
pretty
big
soon it'll be-
black antenna, right? But you look 25 years later, what we have now.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole idea, is to try to be a part of that evolution of this new technology to help
Yeah.
spinal cord injury
At the
patients.
front of it,
yeah,
actually.
really. Yeah.
That's great. But I'm sure there's all these things you can learn from people that are doing it different too.
Definitely.
That's amazing. So I think that's really definitely a hidden gem. But hopefully you don't need to go to rehab hospital.
Yeah, we don't like people visiting us, but when it's
I think
needed,
you
we're
have
there.
to.
Yes, when it's needed, we're there.
Yeah, so that's very good to know that you guys are there. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for
and
having me.
joining me. My guest today is Daniel Uyeunten, and this is High Growth with HTDC. I'm your host, Cindy Matsuki, and we're on ThinkTech Hawaii, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.